we did this thing called the living room theatre concept. So that was in 1981 that we decided to just, start Act 3. We went to homes to do birthday parties.
I actually do remember that I think I was like 7 and Chandran came to my house because I had a birthday party, and you have these guys in like mask and all that, like in the living room, like up close your face, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the real life.
That can be quite scary. Uncool is produced by Creatives at Work and Story Machine.
Like this show? Then rate it 5 stars and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Uncool is a podcast produced, written, and hosted by Sean Lee Win Chong and co-hosted by Yenling Lo, co-produced by Raven Lim, and edited by Ray Ng. Uncool. It's cool to be uncool.
In How to Talk to People, we talk to people about how they started doing things. That's one of the things you do, right? And as far as how to do things are concerned, I think that's what I would really like to find out from our guest today, because he is basically the founder of Singapore's first professional English language theatre company. He ran a time when theatre wasn't really a thing. And being Asian, we also know that if you are having a career in arts, it's kind of like the worst thing ever possible as far as our parents are concerned. How did he do it? How did he keep it going on for 40 over years? That's what I want to find out today, and that's why we've got Chandran.
So welcome,
Hi,
Chandran.
everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
Because this is the How to Talk to People edition, do you find that it's gotten a lot harder to talk to people now than before? Even though that we are all more connected with our devices and so on?
I think face-to-face, yeah. Face-to-face, I think people sometimes, I feel, don't listen, or they're not into details. It's quite strange. I just say it's my name. The funny thing is that I write an email. My name is Chandran, right, with the N there. And people reply Chandra without the N. And it happens so regularly. So I'm just wondering, I don't know whether listen, and now they don't even read. And strangely, I try to make it a point when I write to explain everything, because I know the questions will come. But it's not even, I think, maybe the art of conversation has gone. For me, I think it started when TV came into our lives. Initially, it was good when you had rental. I lived through TV in 63 when it came. I think rental TV, people still had together. But I think when TV dominates and nobody, is conversing, no time. And of course, with social media and Facebook, and you can write, you can text. No need to. Now with emoji, you don't even have to text. Then everything becomes short form. So that's why it's easy when we are old timers, when we get together. I think it's when you chat. When with young people, I mean, there are some, of course, who do, but it's all quick pace. It's sometimes it's monosyllabic, or people answer you and don't know whether they've heard you, listen to your question, or is it that they are, even with interviews where people don't do research. The interviews, they don't do research. They sometimes ask you questions that they should have known. It's not just a literal conversation. I think any connection seems to be short-circuited.
That's a nice way of putting it.
So how do you do that then?
I think you just talk to people who listen and talk like it is necessary. I think at my age, never mind. I think you just look for the positives. Like, they are definitely people who want to have a conversation. If you don't want to, it's okay.
If you guys have grown up in a Singaporean school, you have most likely seen Chandran or one of his colleagues in front of you in one of your school plays.
At some point, I do remember that. I actually do remember that I think I was like 7 and Chandran came to my house because I had a birthday party and they were doing like birthday parties in houses. And I can't remember that. I thought that, okay, and that was kind of scary, in a sense. I'm not saying that Jones Theatre is scary, but when you're 6 and 7 years old and you have these guys in like mask and all that, like in the living room, like up close your face, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the real life.
That can be quite scary. But it was good fun. It was good fun. And I do remember that was one of the more memorable birthday parties I had when I was like a kid. And well, unfortunately, I think I was a bit afraid. But anyway, so Chandran, when you started out actually 40 years ago, right? And English theatre really wasn't a thing in Singapore. Well, of course, it's a thing now, thankfully. But English theatre wasn't a thing then. And so how do you actually talk to people to persuade them that, yes, theatre is a thing and this is something that, you should get behind?
Okay, for me, it was not about convincing people first. I mean, for me, my first actually interest was football and sports. I mean, how I got into this was because I enjoyed writing. Writing, that's how, and then there came this opportunity. The three of us, Jasmine, Ruby, and myself, we met when the Singapore, it was the radio television Singapore at that time is MediaCorp now. They wanted to start English drama, and then they got a few of us together. So I was both a writer and an actor. But then 1980 came, and then the Speak Mandarin campaign came, and then so all the funding and support went to Channel 8. So Channel 5, the English drama was sort of left aside. So the three of us said we shouldn't let this go to waste. One thing, we started something, and then coincidentally, for us, I think the pull was reaching out to children, children's theatre, children's shows. That's how we started first, and then we said, since we started, why let it go to waste? So only the three of us were left from the group. We were really keen, is it? So that was in 1981 that the three of us got together and decided to just start Act 3. As Sean says, there was no tradition of theatre to start with. I mean, there were some groups like the Stage Club doing shows like pantomime, and once or twice a year, but not much in a structured way. And children's theatre too. So for us, for me specifically, it was not about. I wanted to do what I enjoyed doing. I don't think we imagined at the time, this would what it would be like 40 years hence. I think it's just doing things, especially me, because I was really uncool in school and all that. So I just did what I wished to. So I think the what worked at that time, as going to Sean's home, was we thought how it would work is if we did this thing called the living room theatre concept, is taking theatre to people wherever they were. Like, doing a show itself is the best promotion of itself. You didn't have to talk to anybody. You showed it, and not everyone was scared like Sean. So the interaction and all that, I think it got adults interested. So we went to homes to do like birthday party. Actually, we started in a bookshop. That was our first breakthrough. That one we had to convince the bookshop to take us on, but since it was a bookshop, it was MPH at Stamford Road at that time. So that's where we first did our shows in 1982. That was prior to forming the company. And then people were there, and then parents came. So, the interest is basically there to those who come, so it's easier to talk to them. And also the show itself convinced. So then we went to homes to do birthday parties, to other bookshops. Then we worked in conjunction with radio. Like, we went to like Times Bookshop and all that. So we did in conjunction, and we took theatre out. We did almost everywhere. It was like shopping centers. We even went to the park. At that time, there was Bras Basah Park in 83, where cafe is across there. So we did shows there. We went to the beach to do shows. So it was taking theatre to people wherever they were. And, sometimes with luck or with opportunities, that two things come. I mean, you are there, and then and whatever is to happen comes. And I think Singapore was at that time, in the early 80s, ready, especially for parents to indulge in children. And then it sort of grew from there. In fact, we only started doing shows in a theatre itself close to 1984. There was about 2.5 years from when we started taking theatre out to people where they were. And then word of mouth, people at birthday parties, sort of, so like almost every weekend we were doing shows, and in multiple shows. So that's how it started, and it grew. So in a sense, it was a default business plan, but the living room theatre concept is how it all started for us.
So how viable was it as a business plan then? Since there really wasn't a business plan per se when you started it, right? You just said. So how did that go for you?
You see, the thing is that if you don't expect things, I think the thrill is when somebody pays you, is it? So even if it's a small sum, I mean, they think, actually somebody would pay you to do a show like the bookshop, they see that it is a credible thing and they are willing to pay. So it's sort of sort of says, oh yeah, then you start thinking, okay, then you start thinking of the charges and how to make, then the production cost. It's sort of you learn, everything was basically learned on the job, even, working with children. That's the magic of children's theatre. I think when like going to homes, the audience was literally a arm's length away. So you actually learn the craft by looking in their eyes. You see what scares them, what sort of wins them over, and so and business was that too. Then how you charge, and sort of it makes you confident that okay, people are willing to pay. People are willing to bring you to their homes to do a birthday party. It's always with a charge. Then sort of it grew from there. It was on that job, both the production, the artistic sense, and also the business sense. And then we went to schools. And then the ministries came into play, and so then we became cleverer. And the three of us, in a sense, we also had our individual strengths. Like Ruby came from a business background. She was working in a marketing company, and Jasmine was in a what you call the advertising agency. So with the props and all that. And for me, the instinct was writing, and then so you just grow your individual strengths. And then you sort of combine it. Ultimately, it's the product. You see, I mean, you can tell everybody everything about things, but if your product is not attractive or it doesn't win, then it's going to be a problem.
I was just wondering also, on your very first year, right, when you all first started the company, your first couple of years, was there ever an instance whereby, let's say, you went to submit a proposal, or you went to meet a potential client or pitch or something, and you said, "Oh, I do theatre," and because theatre wasn't a thing then, the response was, "Huh, what's that?" And how did you then talk to them to sort of like explain your way through and convince them?
For us, I think for us, one problem initially was that because I was a private limited company, I must say that. So we always had a problem getting funding because we started that way and we never changed it. We were actually told to change a script. We were doing a story, and then there was something in that script was against establishment, but it was actually a book by Catherine Lim. It's a book, but they wanted us to change that particular line, although it was in the book, which we refused to. And then we said that we won't do the show. It was a 3-parter, so we wouldn't do one, and then we did 2 other stories. And we were willing to refund people because we were not doing the 3rd show. But quite nice. I think the school supported us by, they said, never mind, take the, So I think the real problem we had, it was about censorship.
Or was it the whole idea that, it's not, guys need to be at least profitable or commercial as a business before I, come in and invest in you guys? Or was there ever that kind of challenges being in a rather unconventional industry?
Because for us, it was the 3 of us owning the company. I mean, we never had investors because once you have investors, it's going to be something else. It's going to be a different story. So we never had to sell that idea. It was more like shows, productions, support. When we were doing traveling shows, there was a baggage company. I think sometimes who you know, and when you do like birthday parties, somebody there, has connections. So we rented this little truck where we removed the canvas and then we performed on the it was a 3-tonner tower thing, is it? So we could get support in those years, without much of a problem. Because I think we were doing things for children and families, and then I think they had no alternative. So even like Times the Bookshop, MPH, this was quite no big problems.
And you don't have any alternatives.
We were also not trying to get like investors to invest, and then we had to show what we're doing. And in fact, later on, what happened was we did, but the investor came, in. That's why in 1995 we started X3 International to do the drama academy. But strangely, this man with money came to invest. We didn't even ask, and then he didn't even ask about, because I suppose the company was there and he came to invest, and then that's how we started X3 International as a separate arm of X3 Theatrics.
So there was no pitching involved. It was like, here, take my money and then just grow this as big as you can.
I say it's a different mentality that you have to think of, that, and then the long-term repercussions of that too. Like if somebody is hovering over you, then what you do becomes also, you have to dilute it or you have to go a different way. That's the other thing. I suppose it's what you want at the end of the day. Is it the finance? I'm just going to say, is it the financial big part of it, or is it the satisfaction of doing what you have wished for? You see, so I mean, if it is finance, then then you have to think of that way of how to bring in investors and how to, like Disney or something to make it into a. Then it runs its own risk, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a very niche thing at the time, and like you said, there was a growing market for it. But I have a two-part question for you then. Why theatre, first of all? Because you came from the TV. Apart from TV, English TV, as you mentioned at the point of time, declining, you could go into anything at a point of time, but why theatre? And also, why kids theatre? Was it just all about money, or was it just something in your writing that you just felt like, okay, I think this was appealing, or the performance that was there?
It's quite a simple reason for me. Basically, I'm comfortable with children and not adults. Even now, in a social gathering, I would rather blend with the the curtains But with children, it's different. I think that was one thing, and then I think all three of us shared that. And I feel being a person like that too. Because children, I suppose in an Asian setting, not many people would listen to them. It's a fast paced thing. Even in schools, unfortunately, with 40 students in a class, nobody has time for individuals. Whereas when you do theatre, then you can sort of engage smaller groups as when you're doing like traveling shows, and then we realized that it's the power to engage them and give them a voice that sort of was challenging as well. I think rewarding, because teenagers will be very difficult. I think teenagers have their own mind. So I think the comfort and the ability to engage children was why we chose children. And with TV is you don't have a control, you see. I mean, if somebody else decides what to do and all that, whereas theatre, it's your own theatre, you decide, and then because you don't want to do what everybody else is doing or the mentality which everybody has. So in theatre, if it's your own theatre, it helps that. Even like with movies and film, and it's so much technical aspects involved. So a lot of it is also other people's involvement. So that's how it started. So I think theatre is immediate. And when you go to them, we found out when we went to schools, the engagement, it was almost like a circus going to schools. Why I say that? Because we went with really a lot of props, you see. In a sense, we went, I don't know how others do it today, but we really brought stuff. And then we would carry them from the car park or the drive-in to the hall, and then the children would come and help us carry stuff, and then
Oh,
they
that's
see
so
us painting.
nice.
So technically, it was actually like a circus coming to town, and then and then the engagement, and then you tear it up. Sometimes the setting up and the tearing down is longer than the show itself. It's so. I mean, we wanted to show the engagement, and I think the involvement and giving them a voice. And so as I was saying that we also learned on the job. So my writing also became such that it engages. Instead of just telling a story, we started telling with them so that they have inputs to even a simple story. Like, for example, let's say like Three Little Pigs. We showed the pigs as, they don't do housework. They just want to be musicians and all that. And actually the wolf was a decent animal, but his father wanted him to, go and catch. He said it's not a dog, he's a wolf. So in the sense, the final part where the police come to arrest the wolf, I think we opened up to the audience, to them to be the jury, to see what is to be done with the wolf. So it's not an easy a decision for them. If you show like it's not black and white, it's gray. So then that became the thrill of them being able to lead the stories. Yeah, it's the voice. Like, and say it's very noisy, but that's what it is.
It's almost like forum or playback theatre, but by kids.
Yeah.
It's like forum or playback theatre, but told by kids or something.
Yeah, it's what they want. And of course, there are a lot of them who have listened to fairy tales and such, and they want it a particular way, but there are also other voices. So that also challenge that, you see, because it's like, it's not the wolf's fault, it's the pig's world. So, so at least makes them think, and it's not that you're always determining what it is like, whatever time you have.
So, listening to you, I'm getting a sense that, I mean, from a business point of view, and from the way that you're just uh, doing things as as theatre as a thing, you're like a first mover. So, do you actually believe, having lived through that, do you believe that there's actually advantages of being like a first mover?
I think it's like, it's like walking in a forest. You don't know what's ahead of you, but you are the first one to discover. You see, and also when tracks or paths open up, you can explore. Definitely, I mean, of course, it's different because you have nothing to compare to. So it's just your own guts, your own sense of what it is. That's the excitement. With I feel believe in subsequently, yeah. I mean, people have got choices, and then things become structured. Where here you are almost random, you see, and you're almost discovering what to do, how to do. Like children are not the same too. Even now we focus on special needs children. So it's not just blanket. It's not just one big block of people, is it? So it forces you to, every time when you're there, the audience is different. The audience is different as a whole. The audience is different as individuals. So it makes you really figure out. You cannot say that you're an expert, or they are going to behave in a particular way each time. I think that was the excitement of it too. Yeah, it's was exploring and finding. And because if you have a positive mindset, which I always want to have, we don't take them as, like, I mean, they're challenges, but you know that at the end of the day, yeah, things will work out. Is if something doesn't, you just shift it. You're not like so structured that you don't want to move. Like even now, you do a drummer program. I mean, you don't go with outline and say, I want to stick to it and just do what I tell you to do. Like, it doesn't. Yeah. So, and when you have nothing to fall back on, it's quite a thrill.
That is really a very interesting perspective, because I think a lot of people, when they talk about being the first mover as well, they talk about, the very advantageous parts of it, which is, there's no competition basically. But it is true where you're walking on an untrodden path. So everything is new but so scary at the same time.
Now, I was just going to say about the no competition. That could be a danger if you feel that you are safe and there's no competition, and then you sort of rest on your laurels. That do the other dangers. I mean, so you need to focus on what you are doing regardless of what's happening around you. And yeah, so that's important, I see, because they could also lull you to the idea, oh, nobody else is doing, or because people know me and they would come to me first, then you get sloppy.
That's interesting because you are the first, and then you see all these guys coming around making the theatre scene. Technically, they're your competitors.
And at the same time, I think you're an inspiration for a lot of people. So, people, after looking at you guys, you're like, oh, maybe that's something or something similar that I want to do.
I think you're also in an advantageous position because you have done things, then you can open up. Like for us too, then we sort of incorporated like preschoolers and then special needs. Not because maybe others were doing a children's theatre, so it was not, you're not needed there as much anymore. So you also look for other avenues that are similar, and because of the experience you've had, then like special needs, for example, is a different challenge, but you have the basic sort of skills, and then I think you're braver in a sense to venture further. Yeah, that's the thing. So people are always catching up. I mean, now a lot of companies are also doing all the major companies are doing children's theatre on one side, and then now they're also going into special needs too. Yeah, so
And right now, you mentioned you're moving into theatre or shows for special needs as well, right? How different does it, or how similar does your writing have to be as compared to your previous children shows?
actually, what we do now mostly is working with those with special needs, and then finding special abilities. So the idea is that all of us have special needs. Mine is I'm painfully shy as myself. That's my special need. So how I overcome that is so again, when you work with people term special needs, it's finding what their special skills are. Like we've done a story with a dancer who is hearing impaired or deaf. Actually he is, but he dances, you see. So you do stories, but in the sense that you don't need like butterflies. The idea of butterflies don't need music, and they are dancing and in such that they can feel the vibration. So you incorporate what they are, can be, or you just do any story that yeah. It just we find the strengths in people. We worked recently. I did a musical a few years ago, and until we had to stop because of COVID. We were working with an inclusive company where we had he's a man. He's diagnosed with autism, and but he plays the piano beautifully. By ear, and he just listens to and he can play, but it's a bit difficult to manage him on set. But we did a musical in which he was the central character, and we also always had a shadow with him, an actor with him, like in case on stage he did other things. And then it culminated with him playing the piano, and we got somebody from Jazz Association singing. So he actually accompanied, and he didn't really need many rehearsals. So for me, that's the thing I would like to do today. And next week we're putting up a show in a primary school with a lady who has cerebral palsy. She's wheelchair bound, but she's a poet, and for her to share her poem. So it's finding the abilities, special abilities, and then trying to give them a voice and propagate that. So that's the current emphasis. So these are adults. I mean, adults and children now. It's good now. There's much more support for our schools. I think it's also not compulsory that they have to be sent to school at primary level already. And I think there's government support funding for arts in school. But unfortunately, like by 18, when they leave school, most of them just stay at home. I know, like, what else to do, you see, because I mean, some of them, when the parents are really enthusiastic, they can see that it also takes a toll on parents. So I think this takes a bit away from big always have to be there, because their worry is what happens when they themselves, the parents, go. You see what happens to them. So, and a lot of them are talented. Like the thing is that with so-called special needs is that they have this talent. Is it focused? Mainstream or you are broad, but there's some of them are so focused that they can. I'm sure you've come across those artists who can do minute drawings, replications of stuff just by memory. So it's finding like what their skill is, and then try to develop that and give them a sense of worth, patience. That's what you learn from their children also.
Yeah, that I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing. I never thought of it that way before. It's sometimes just giving people the confidence to express themselves, the opportunities to express themselves for them to do that. Now, we talked about the differences of working with and performing for special needs. But we also, as you mentioned before, talked about the differences of talking to children and adults. So, in your opinion, so what's that main difference you think between communicating with children and adults, and why one just draws you more than the other? Because I personally, if it's a whole hall full of children and the adults, I also prefer talking to the children a lot more than adults. So what do you think it is about children, and why is it so difficult for some for some of us to talk to people our own age.
I feel that children are willing to listen and talk to you. I don't know. I mean, not to say all adults don't, but I think adults sometimes come with preconceived notions, and then it sort of gets into an argument. And I think it's also just being whether you are outgoing or you are somebody who is quieter. Right? Because I think with children, if you are basically like them, like in a sense, it's easy because you just want them to talk as much as possible, and then it's you can encourage them to do that, and sort of here and there, get into the conversation. Whereas I suppose maybe adults are more cynical. Yeah, I know. I think it's just a comfort level. Yeah, I'm just always comfortable with. Basically, maybe it's because of my character too.
I think it's the beautiful sort of growth of a market and the growth of the art scene as well. I think it was a very, like I mentioned in the beginning, most people, especially my age, Sean's age, we would have watched Act 3 one time in our life, at least in school, right? So we remember it, and we remember that it was Act 3, and I think it was a very small, but at the same time, maybe it left an impression on our kids. So have you ever thought about that? Like when you're writing your stories and trying to tell stories, trying to bring a point across, like telling kids it's not just black and white, it is gray. Have you ever thought about this is what the kids are going to think about in the future, or shaping their thoughts in a certain way?
Actually, definitely no. I think you live in the present and you just do your best. And the idea is to, I think, build confidence in children, young people, to do as they would like to. Not to be angry about, not to say that in Singapore you can't live with the arts or you can't be an actor. But now there are a lot of people who do, you see. If you want to, it's hard work. I mean, that's the important thing. And there are people who would listen to your voice. I mean, don't shy away from the thing that nobody cares. I think a lot of people who care. But for me, I've never, and so it always is wonderful when people remember, like you do. And just 2 days ago, because it's so fresh in my mind, this gentleman came up to me to say thank you for coming to my primary school. Because you did a show on the idea of say no to smoking. He said it made such an impression that he promised himself never to smoke, and until today he has not smoked. Yeah, you do a show, you do things. Yeah, so I mean that's what I remember now. Like most people, I think that's one thing good about children's theatre, and people always have pleasant memories instead of lucky you didn't play a villain or something. Although I did play villains, but people don't remember that. So it's always a pleasant thing which you never have thought of. Like, I think it's like a lot of. I think very few people when you're doing it, you think of the future that You always wonder whether all this is making a difference to people, but you only realize it when people are adults and then they remember, and it's fondly easy. And it was never forced, I suppose. I try to live my life that I can be an example if people want to live this way. So, which is also really such a pleasure that a lot of those who have come through, even Sean, who was with us for a while, right? Doing work in the arts, in the industry, being actors, being it's a byproduct. It's many things, like we're not definitely not just us, but yeah.
Can I tell you my impression of the performance or performances that I had? I do not actually remember what the topic was about. It must have been something about like drugs or something. I say no to drugs, that kind of thing. But I do not remember because I only think it was say no to drugs because that would have been very typical of primary school. But I think the impression that I had was, arts is people can perform, and there is, I think in my young mind, there was no such thing as, there's a market for it, but there is a possibility that someone can do something like this. I think that was the impression that has lasted with me until now. And that's why I always remember Act 3, right? And you guys going to schools all the time. I mean, like, something like this actually exists. and you can do something like this. And that's why I always lean towards the arts a little bit more because of that. So like a very roundabout, very second-handed impression, but that's what I got instead of the actual story itself.
There are a lot of people have shared that just seeing on us on stage give the idea that why not them too. Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing is not to imitate, but to find their own paths. And it can be different. It can be so that's why it's so varied. That's the thing. But I think the end of the day is how as adults we can help children. Give them the power to do things as they wish. But I think they must always remember it's hard work. It's not, people cannot just sit there and say, I want to be an actor and then expect everybody else to help you. Like, I think
Damn,
it doesn't
Nick,
work
say
that
you're
way.
an actor.
It's not just
Yeah.
Singapore. I think it's anywhere else. I mean, some lucky people, I don't know. Even you go to Hollywood or there are a lot of people struggling, and so you can't say just Singapore.
On that note, then when for you, Chandran, when and what was the moment that you experienced when you realized that okay, I've made it. I think theater drama can be a viable thing for me as a career.
In the mid 80s, we got into this scheme with the Ministry of Culture at that time that we could use Drama Center, the old one at Fort Canning. I think 4 productions a year. And then if you do 3 shows each production, then you didn't have to pay for the rental and all that. So when we started doing that, then it became such that we were doing like 40 odd shows per production, you see. And it was always full house.
So it's like 40 and 4 productions.
4 productions a year. You actually only had to do three shows per production, and you qualify
Okay.
for this. I think with us and Theatre Works and Necessary Stage, so we had our own places. So us was Drama Center. I think somebody was at Victoria Theatre, and yeah. Then we were able to do like 40 odd shows, like three shows a day almost, you see. Then we could also offer like employment to others. It was not just the 3 of us anymore. There was a 4th person who came when we started 85. Then we could actually have like full-time actors and people doing props and costumes. Yeah, so from like mid 80s, late 80s to 90s, it was like. Then when we moved to Ken Hill, the old ACS up the hill, like the premises was quite large, you see. So from when we started in 81 was a hotel room. Some kind soul allowed us to use one hotel room. Then we went to the squash center. Then, when we came here, it was really a proper place. So, yeah. And then I think there was also, I think fulfilling is that you could afford to have people like specific roles, even like, from receptionist to somebody who does costumes to props and, stuff. Yeah.
So that's when you're like, oh yes, I've made it a little bit into a proper outfit right now.
So was that the moment also when you could go to your mom and say, yeah, you see, I told you theater can make a living?
Actually, parents are strange. I mean, although they didn't forbid, but I think I was quite disappointed with my dad. Like he wanted to be either, of course, would be an accountant, doctor, or engineer, I think, or lawyer.
Yeah.
But I think when we started and we appeared on TV, and my dad would always go around, quite embarrassing lah. Then he always go around telling, well, my son is on TV. They were quite early on. I mean, they were not. They were supportive, fortunately, like my family. So then when sometimes you are not doing shows, you say, how come today got no work, is it? Yeah, it sort of changes to the other side. Yeah.
Then you started hiring people as well, especially people in the arts. The impression that was given even during the performances itself was that there is a future in the arts, or there's a future for Singapore arts also. But there are still a lot of people who feel doubt in that, or feel like they cannot hop into it because maybe like your parents, our parents, they still do not see a future in that, in the career. They do not feel secure in doing so. So what do you think you can say to them if you meet a person like that?
Firstly, is how badly you want to do it. And then you must take out all the outside influences, like not like who is going to give me an opportunity, or how do I get the money and all that first. Is you put that aside and make yourself be indispensable, be good. I mean, whatever craft that is that people would want you, instead of assuming that you are the best and then, why nobody is employing me. Like, I think you have to hone your skill, your craft, as much as you can first, and don't. I mean, the money is there, but you have to be like, because why would somebody want to use you? Because you have to be different, or you have to have a different skill, or your mentality has to be different. It's because some people work very hard. If you can see, even currently, some actors do a lot of work because I think they're willing to work hard. This is not exploitation. You just have to, show people you are trustworthy, you have the skill and then stamina to, yeah. So I think a lot of people unfortunately say that like there's no support. Just have to take that away. Like, you just have to do things, become good at it, and then your opportunities will come. You have to be there, you see. Be positive, and then slowly you can value yourself, because you can see that there are people who are doing the arts. You need to adapt to and find how you can. Like for us, children's theatre is, children don't decide, parents do. So you have to go to places where they're adults. Like even like going to a home, a birthday party, so that adults watch it. So that because the adults decide, you see. So you cannot say that I'm purely an artist, or no, that I just want to do this. That can come later. For now, you need to adapt. I mean, not losing your principles or your philosophy, but just broadening it a little and doing things. Like I did mascots, I did Santa Claus and all that too. You see, so I mean, all these are experiences that make you better. The way to go forward is to do things. Paths will open up, because people see you. They see that you're hardworking. But if you are always complaining, and then it's bad vibes. Though, don't help. Positivity helps. You need to take the steps in a path, and then things open. Some things you never expect, and you can stumble upon, and like Michelle Yeoh winning the Oscars, or I mean, I don't think that's what you start off with, but you need to start off with something, and believe in yourself, but make yourself better along the way. The best lah. I mean, if you want to be the people to acquire new skills, or do things different.
I do believe that as well. I have seen, and this might be a little bit of a rant on my side, where there's a lot of talk nowadays about people like valuing an individual's skill sets and talents, but it's very hard to do so when you haven't shown that before being given the opportunity. Right? You sort of have to fight for that a little bit, and that sometimes is going the extra mile, putting in the extra work, doing the extra hour, and not just saying I can do it, but you gotta pay me for it first before I do it for you. But no one is at the same time going to pay you for it if you haven't proven yourself to do so. I mean, it's a chicken and egg kind of thing.
I think now the competition also is more complex. They have influencers and others who are media savvy. So you can't say that they don't deserve. I mean, those people also work very hard, you see. But they have now production houses also look at how many followers you have. So I mean, the talent is one thing. I think you have to invent yourself, unfortunately, but that's what it is. It evolves, right? I mean, that's talent too. You can't say it is. The influencers or whoever. It's hard work, I'm sure, and it's non-stop too. You see, so you can't say so easy. Just influencer. So you just have to invent yourself and find what works now.
When I listen to you, it strikes me how important strategic thinking is, in that sense. But very little of it is done by founders of businesses, of new businesses in general, right? They just want to, hey, I want to do it because I want to do a new business because it's cool and so on. So since you were basically starting up business when there really wasn't any reference or so on or industry to speak, to do that strategy thinking. So how did it flow for the three of you?
Fortunately, the three of us, the mentality was somewhat similar, and we had different strengths, as I said. So, and past experience. Like Ruby was from a marketing business side, and Jasmine had is wonderful with hands, and for me, I enjoy writing. So that's all came together, and the mentality was similar. Like we're not after money. First, we wanted to do this work and reach out to young people, and I think because you are in the creative field, you would automatically think creativity. So, your mind, just like writing a new play or new script, you automatically think, okay, if I have this challenge, what do I do to circumvent it or go around it, or who has got strength to do what, and how you get little inroads. It's in your DNA because that's what you do, is it? I think as an actor, you are also the chameleon. You're playing different roles, and sometimes it's difficult. Most of the times you're not yourself. Even when you're dealing in a business sense, you're also you're playing a character, right? I mean, most of us, I think, just want to sit in a corner and not face all this. So, I think instinctively it happens when you are in this business. You are challenging yourself to think of new ways to think. Yeah, so depends on what business you do. Because if money or if quick bucks is your motivation, then I think you have to think different. And this is a marathon. It's a long distance. You plan so that there is ups and downs, but you have enough time to overcome things like. See, and the risks are that calculated in that sense, spread over. That's why we didn't spend money like getting premises and all that, which we got it through NAC, where there is a. Because then you have to think of all those things when you have costs that you cannot control. So you always mindful. So these are little lessons lah. I mean, I had background in accountancy too, so at least there's some idea that you make sure that whatever the money comes in, it covers, and then it sort of builds on. Rather than thinking of I want millions and then think the other way how to achieve it, is because it can be quite stressful because it's a long distance, and you don't see an end. I mean, it's not like so there's time, and there's you're not worried about loans or getting a lot of money in and investing and then having at the mercy of others.
So I just want to set the context first. When in your definition, what is Singapore theatre?
I think it's theatre put up by Singaporeans, but not necessarily the content. It doesn't have to be Singlish. I mean, if that's what you want to do, what's beautiful is there's so many things you can do, from mime to puppetry to bringing in classics to doing your own to musical. I think it's Singaporeans, basically actors, producers, and putting up shows in that sense lah. Maybe one day it will be all Singapore, but I think that'll be boring also. It doesn't. I don't think Singlish alone, or would be, or a mixture. As we go bolder, which is why you broaden the base, broaden in a number of people who come to theatre and they have their own ideas. The better it is. I think it's healthier that we are able to support Singaporeans. I mean, if you bring a foreign production and bring a whole lot of foreigners to do, then I don't consider that local theatre, Singapore theatre. But if you use a script, but basically it is. I think it's a learning process too. You sort of go stages too. First you do like fairy tales, then slowly I think gives you strength, and sometimes you do it because you want the audience to come, you want to have a following. Unfortunately, if you like, even in children's theatre, if you do a unknown title, it would be difficult to draw unless you are a big theatre company. If you are starting off, it's good to do titles that people are familiar with, that's something they can latch onto. Then slowly you build from there, and then you find your own niche. Because today, if you look at the theatre companies, they have different strengths. Some do basically Singapore play. Some bring in things that can resonate. I mean, if you do foreign also, I mean, it should resonate with us lah. I mean, how to, yeah. That's what I feel Singapore theatre is by Singaporeans.
Yeah, speaking about strategy and the costs of running the business as well, especially in this post-pandemic world, right? Rising cost of living, people's priority shift is shifting, and I think there was a huge shift during the last few years as well. Arts isn't at the top of the list for a lot of people. A lot of people prefer to spend their money on other things, and you have gone through a lot of it throughout your past 40 years in the business. In your opinion, how does the next 10 years or 20 years look like for the art scene in Singapore, the theatre scene in particular?
For me, are positive because I think it's not true that the arts means less. From our experience, we do storytelling on Saturdays, and it's quite amazing. There's always full house. Parents bring their children. They're very young children. Some of them like below 4, below 3, and a lot of new faces. I mean, we are quite surprised pleasantly. I don't know because it's a COVID or it just happened. So I think people are aware, and they are bringing children to theatre. That's one. And if you look around, there are lots of theatre shows going on, even foreign ones coming in. So I think we need to be careful and not to overdo it. So you need to think carefully, because there is support. So how you don't exhaust it, because if you think that there's a lot of support, and then you exhaust yourself, and then your standards go down, that will be a problem, you see. So you still have to do the best. But recently, I think many of the shows, even the local productions, are always sold out. And if you see that there's LaSalle, there's Nafa, I think theatre, maybe because it's live, somehow it's people still need it, you see. Even with Zoom and all that, when you do a face-to-face drama program, it is different, and people, I think, appreciate it. And our post, actually, there's not been a slump in my what I see when things are organized. There always seems to be a lot of people coming, and I think the greatest pleasure is when parents bring young children, expose them to stories. And I mean, every Saturday we do storytelling at Gateway, and it's always full house, and some of the children are really almost toddlers, with parents are willing to bring.
How would you talk to people who are very, just starting on their career and just starting on the arts? Like, what would you say to
For
them?
me, I'll try and understand what their real passion is without questioning. I mean, for me to listen to why they want to do something. Is it they want to change the world? Is it that they feel angry about something? I would like to find that. Then it's easier to see perhaps how you can go systematically without sort of getting in the way. Like if you're angry, and then you the anger is what motivates you, could be also risky, because then you're not looking for solutions, you see, that you become too cynical, or you want to change the world. Sometimes you're angry, or you think that everything is going wrong. But then I would suggest then that it always takes small steps. You can't, I mean, like each individual child or individual person you can reach out to, then slowly that person to it's sort of a rippling effect, and it goes out now. But if you want to change the world and make this a better world, and then you are thinking of macro, then I mean, try not to waste energy on that. Do the little things that matter. Focus on what you feel your ability is, the best bit of you, what you're blessed with, and then see how you can use that positively, and things will happen, you see, because you can't change the world. I don't think as an individual you can't change the whole world, but you can change in small bits and pieces, and then that helps. Like we say that now people remember what we did. I mean, we didn't set out to change the world or anything, but you make impressions in people's lives, and hopefully it's positive. Then it sort of multiplies that way, you see. Then you see that it happens lah. But if you're very angry about things, and then you're not happy with how somebody else is doing, I think you shouldn't compare. People do what comes naturally to them, what they are best at, whatever way they want to do theatre, and not to criticize others, but try to find your own strength, and breathe naturally.
And so that's how, folks, if you want to build a sustainable career in theatre and drama for 40 over years, that's what you do. Yeah.
So we talked about your career, about starting out. So looking back, when do you think you were the most uncool? And what would you say to yourself if you could right now?
I think that was long before. I mean, when I was a teenager, I think I dreaded like going up a bus, public bus, because I thought when I went up there, everybody was staring at me in a negative way. Those few years, sometimes I would think like my classmates are cooler, and they go all these other stories. But today I will go back and still tell myself, just be myself. There's nothing to be ashamed of, because what the life is at the end. You see, now I have a beautiful family, people with love, good vibes around me. So even those uncool, what I thought or what was supposedly uncool, that I know I was mostly by myself and not going out night sports and whatever, experimenting things and all that. Actually, I was also cool in my uncool. I just used to wear bell bottoms that was like 18, 20 inches. And wearing platform shoes. Yeah, the advantage for me was being uncool when it's cool. That's why my football club I chose is Chelsea, when it's cool to be a Manchester United or Liverpool supporter. So I've always chosen the other way, to be the other one.
How can people find out about you and Act3 maybe on social media, and how can they reach out to you?
My Instagram is rchandranrama. Then let me know. I will then give them. I'm always ready to chat. Yes, I think I have a blog somewhere, but I don't think I've progressed much. How else? Yeah, I can personally give people my phone number. These days, actually, I want to cherish life by meeting people and chatting.
So if you want to have a genuine conversation with Chandran, reach out to him through his Instagram or Facebook. And maybe
drop him a DM.
maybe in real life as well, have a real conversation.
Like this show? Then rate it 5 stars and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Uncool is a podcast produced, written, and hosted by Sean Lee Win Cheong and co-hosted by Yen Ling Lo, co-produced by Raven Lim, and edited by Ray Ng. Uncool. It's cool to be uncool.
On the next episode of Uncool,
I took an insane pay cut going to from finance into a fashion startup.
And is it more than 50% of a pay cut?
Yeah.
I can't imagine what your mom and dad must have thought about it.
Dude, they were about to disown me.
Uncool. New episodes every Saturday.